Yes, this is Mr. Glenn of ACT Prep Chicago. Just finishing up the reading section of the ACT Prep Chicago. If you have any, want to reach out to us regarding anything in this video or you want extra help with ACT, this is our contact information here. Today we are working on practice test two. The official practice test is on ACT's website. It comes from this particular web page where you go to test prep and find a free practice test, and it's practice test two. You can download it right there. That's the link for it. And we're working on or you can get just one section if you want. We're working on oh no, I think these are the digital versions when you click on these individually. Um, yeah, that's the digital version there. Okay. So digital version is the same test, but we're working on the PDF version, which is here. Same questions though. Digital version just allows you to complete it online with the timing. PDF is complete on your own time if you want. Okay. Excuse me. The first video was the reading, and we did the first two passages, which is 1 through 18. Now we will finish the reading with passage 3. Now, here's something interesting that I haven't seen in the reading section of the ACT before. It's a chart, graph, or table, almost like a science part on the reading. That's interesting. I hadn't seen that before. All right, but nevertheless, it's still a reading passage. So, a reading passage, I tend to read them first. This is an informational passage. This passage is adapted from the article Spiders, Web of Intrigue. So, this is going to be about spiders. Okay. Catherine Borzak, 2015 by Springer Nature. The graphic is adapted from the article Spider Silk Inspired Artificial Fibers. What is the graphic? Is this the graphic? Yeah, mechanical properties of natural and synthetic fibers. So they're given the properties of natural and synthetic fibers. So I guess bark spider, silver garden spider, silkworm silk are all so maybe natural fibers, and then Kevlar, nylon, carbon might be synthetic fibers. Um, I'm just guessing, but anyway, this is the graphic talk. Okay, let's read. A Madagascan bark spider releases a silk dragline into the air. The wind carries the thin threads to the other side of a river, where they land on foliage on the opposite bank 25 meters away. This must be British treads. They put R before the E. Sometimes they do that in British um, England or Great Britain. They spell things different. We spell meters with E before the R in America. All right, the bark spider then stretches the bridge line to establish tension, reinforces it, and draws on a palette of other silks, stretchier or stickier as needed to fashion a web to capture the bugs flying over the water. Interesting. C. Darwini's bridging silk is the word C. Darwini. That's the bark spider. Um, is the world's toughest known biomaterial. It is even tougher than steel fiber, really. Wow. But C. Darwinian's versatility in producing different kinds of silk is not unique. Many spiders can spin several silks, stiff structural strands to stabilize their webs, gooey, stretchy spirals to capture flying insects, adhesive pads to anchor their homes into place, and extraordinarily robust drag lines from which to hang. Oh, wow. The remarkable mechanical properties of these natural fibers have attracted the attention of materials scientists. Researchers are looking to arachnids, which are spiders, and other silk makers for ideas about how to make new structural materials for bridges and vehicles. They're resistant adhesives for climbing robots and sturdy polymers for biomedical devices. Many silks bring together properties that are not really present in man-made materials. The extreme toughness and elasticity seen in spider threads is one example. Silk proteins can be molded like plastic or perform optical functions like silicone. Yet, because they're organic biological materials, silks are environmentally friendly and biocompatible. Silk proteins can be fashioned into films that can be implanted in the body, releasing drugs as they dissolve. This combination of features is unavailable in polyester or collagen or anything else, says David Kaplan, an early proponent of high-tech biomedical silk at Tufts University in Medford, Massachusetts. There's clearly a need for new biomaterials, he says. For Kaplan and others, silk is the best way to meet that need. Silk evolved independently in many invertebrates, including spiders, honeybees, and silkworms. Individual spiders can take as many as 6 different kinds of silk proteins and 2 group each of which has evolved over the creature's 400 million years of natural history. Each spider species uses its own variations of these proteins to make many different types of thread. All right. I probably should have been doing this. Sometimes I do it thinking about what the main idea of the paragraph is, but I'm getting when I'm reading, so I use keep going. We think that a primordial spider had one kind of silk, and then there were multiple events when the gene duplicated involved. Yeah, that's what I was pretty impressed with. That's what this paragraph is about. Um, Spiders can make as many as 6 different kinds of silk protein. That's what I was looking at. Again, that's crazy. They talked about that above, how they could be different strengths, right? Which is crazy. Stabilize their webs, stretchy spirals, so catch insect, adhesive pads, sticky, and robust drag lines from which to obtain. And they said it can be tougher than steel fiber. That is crazy. I didn't know that a spider can do so much with silk. That was just one kind of spider web, right? Each of which has evolved over which is for dimensions. Each spider uses its own variation of these proteins to make many different types of thread. We think that I only have one silk. We think that primordial spider had one kind of silk, and then there were multiple events when the gene duplicated and evolved, says Cheryl Hayashi, a spider specialist in University of California, Riverside. The species that are more closely related to these ancestors, such as tarantulas and trapdoor spiders, make silks of simple designs, messy tangles to trap walking insects, for example, using fewer types of silk. Other spiders evolved to make more complex spiraling orb webs in which different regions are composed of different kinds of silk, some optimized for capturing prey, others for structural support of large web designs. This evolutionary bounty has happy implications for engineers looking to put spider silk into human service. If a design calls for a fiber with a particular ratio of strength to stretchiness, it's probably already been invented by one of the tens of thousands of types of spider. Most research has centered on taking advantage of the toughness of spider silk. In material science, toughness is a measure of how much energy it takes to break something. Materials such as spider silk are both strong and elastic. A large insect that flies into a spider web at top speed stretches the superfine fibers in the web but does not break them. The toughest silks are found in spider drag lines, which researchers are studying intensely. Spiders use drag lines to dangle safely to make frames of their webs and for situations in which resistance to breakage is paramount. In the scene from 2004 movie Spider-Man 2, the eponymous, eponymous, I know that word, I've seen that before, but I forgot what it means. Superhero stops a runaway New York City subway train with his webbing, which is not too far of a stretch from reality. Wow, it makes spider webs that strong. Wow. And here's a graphic to say the strength and elasticity and the toughness of different spider webs. And you can see the bark spider, which they started out in the beginning talking about Madagascar bark spider, had a web that was really tough. Wow, 354 toughness. That means they had a really strong. Um, wow, strong in the Kevlar. Wow. And carbon fiber. Wow. Wow, that's interesting. And then as we speak, there was a flying bug that came here, a mosquito. Where the hell did that mosquito? Sorry, guys. That dang on mosquito. It's cold outside. How did it still really? Still, and it's cold outside too. You gotta kill those, otherwise they're gonna be biting your butt. Or no, I'm sorry, for Peter, I didn't kill it. I just yeah, I got rid of it. All right. In the context of the passage, the main function of the first paragraph is to, what was the function of the first paragraph? I think it was talking about the Madagascar bark spider releasing the wind carries the wind thread. So it was just giving us it's just it's just telling us how the Madagascar bark spider creates a web, right? Provides an overview of the internal process that enables spiders to know, illustrates the strength and versatility of spider silks by describing how one particular spider uses its silks to create a web. That could be that. Introduce the idea that spiders are resourceful by describing the obstacles they encounter when no. Point out that the properties of silks made by spiders are similar to those silks made by other no. It was B. Um, A, provide an overview of the internal process that enables spiders to no. It wasn't about internal process. Illustrate the strength and versatility of spider silks, right? Strength and versatility was stretching over a river, and it was versatile. You could use it, it could use it to move or to catch insects. How one particular spider, the Madagascar bar spider, uses its silk to create a web, the web that would catch insects over a body of water. So it would definitely be. That's what that was about. You reread that paragraph again. Clearly see it was about one particular spider, the Madagascar bark spider, and how when it carries the thin thread to the side of the river, and then it said, then stretch the bridge line to establish tension, reinforces it, and draws on a pallet of other silks, stretchier or stickier as needed. So it used different type of silk suit to fashion a web. So yes, the strength and versatility. Versatility is a different type of silks, right? 19 was a B. 20. According to the passage, how does the bark spider establish tension in its bridge line? It drops the bridge line into water. No. It reinforces the bridge line with silk. Yes. It adds dirt. It stretches. No. It reinforces the bridge line with silk. Establish tension in its bridge line. That was in the beginning, right? The bark spider then stretches the bridge line or stretches it to establish tension, reinforces it, and draws on a palette of other silks. Yeah, because yeah, it stretches it to establish tension. Yeah, because silk is the spider web. So it says, how does the spark spider establish tension? The bridge line is the silk, but it stretches it. It said it stretches the bridge line, right? So that's check. In the context of the passage, the statement, so that's a good tip you guys learn. I thought I had read that it reinforced the ridgeline with silk, but when I went back to where I remember it talking about the bark spider, which was in the beginning, right? I decided to go back just to make sure. And when I went back, I saw verbatim that it said that it establishes tension by stretching the bridge line. It said that verbatim. So a lot of these answers are based on directly stated things in the passage. So it's very important that you base your answers on what's in the passage. 21. In the context of the passage, the statement in lines 11 and 12 can best be described as 11 and 12, what they said in 11 and 12. But see, Darwinian's versatility in producing different kinds of silk is not unique. The bridge, the bark spider's versatility is not unique. Why did they put that in there? A claim asserted by several researchers but contradicted by no. The fact that the passage author supports by citing the variety of silks of the spider. I did do that, yes. A reason judging based on the passage author understanding how no. An opinion, no, it wasn't an opinion. It was B. It was a fact the passage author supports by citing the variety of silks other spiders can produce. That's what he did, right? He said, right after that, he said many spiders can spin several silks, and then he goes on to the variety of different type of silks that spiders can produce. So definitely, um, B. 22. According to the passage, how many different kinds of silk proteins can an individual spider make? They said about 400. I remember reading that, J. Um, how many different kinds of silk proteins can an individual spider make? I think I read it right here, right? No, that was 400 million years of natural history. Oh no, I'm glad I read. Individual spiders can make as many as six different kinds of silk proteins. Wow. I'm so glad I went back. I remember reading 400, but it was 400 million years of natural history. That would have been wrong. So six different kinds of silk proteins. Hopefully you guys are watching me do this. This is important to me doing it now while you guys can see it so you can see that I could have easily made a mistake on that one. Um, so about as many as six, the different kinds of silk proteins. I remember reading 400, but it was 400 million something. It wasn't 400 different types of silk. You got to be careful. That's why you have to look back. See, I was about to answer that, but I said, let me look back because I knew where if you know where they talked about it, you just look back just to make sure. Because again, the answer is based on what's in the text. It can reasonably be referred from the passage that the author uses the word stretch mainly to reinforce an idea in the passage with a humorous play on words, emphasize the elaborate nature of some spider webs, suggest the passage's representation of spider webs may be slightly exaggerated, criticize the movie's lack of authenticity. Oh, so it's talking about the movie Stretch 78, which is not too far of a stretch from reality. Um, I think it was reinforcing the idea in the passage that humans played on words, not too far of a stretch, because the whole idea with spider was stretching, but they weren't using stretch to mean stretch in terms of stretching the actual web. They're talking about stretch meaning a reach. Like this idea is not too far-fetched, right? So I think it was a reinforcement idea in the passage the humans play on words. I think it was A. Because they were saying the idea that you can use a spider web to stop a moving train is not too far of a stretch, meaning it's believable almost. That's how strong some webs are. Um, it was not trying to suggest passage repetition spider may be slightly exaggerated because they said not too far of a stretch, meaning some webs can be strong, and that's what they talked about in the beginning. The bark spider's web is really strong, stronger still. Criticize the movie's lack of authenticity. No, so definitely. All right, 24. Based on lines 65 through 67 and the table, which of the following statements is accurate? 65, 67 and a table. So what does 65 to 67 say? Um, in materials science. So we don't read because it says 65, 67, so they must want us to start here. In material science, toughness is a measure of how much energy it takes to break something. How much energy it takes to break something. So if something is considered really tough, then it takes a lot of energy to break it. Um, high tensile fiber requires much less energy to break than the bark spider silk does. High tensile fiber, steel fiber, high tensile fiber, steel fiber, right? That's true. Requires much less energy because toughness is the amount of energy that it takes to break it. So 6 versus 354, F is definitely true. The high tensile steel fiber requires much less energy. So it's definitely F. Let's look at G. Only the silver gardens spider flag silk requires more energy to break than the domestic silkworms does. Only the silver garden spider flag silk requires more energy. Wait, only, let me get that in your mind. Only the silver gardens requires more energy than the domestic silkworm. No, because the bark spider also requires more energy. So it's not only the silver garden. That's not true. Synthetic fibers like Kevlar 49 require much more energy to break than natural fibers like silk do. No, the natural fibers were the spiders above, the bark spiders, silk garden, and domestic. Um, they require more, they have a higher toughness, which means they require more energy than the Kevlar. All three of those are natural, require more than the Kevlar, which is synthetic. So that's not correct. Nylon fiber requires the same amount of energy to break as carbon. No, nylon fiber has a toughness of 89, carbon has a toughness of 25. That means nylon fiber requires more energy to break than carbon. So F is the only possibility. It's good to go through sometimes the other ones if you have time. Just to, and you should be able to quickly do that just to reaffirm your answer if you're not 100% sure. I was pretty sure about this answer. Based on the passage in the table, does the information in the table support the passage's claim about how the bark spider silk compares to steel fiber? So this one, comparison, you gotta make sure you read it carefully to know what the item of comparison is. Based on the passage in the table, does the information in the table support the passage's claim about how the bark spider silk compares to steel fiber? Yes, it does. Because while the table indicates the bark spider silk is not as strong as steel fiber, that's not true. Yes, because the table indicates the toughness of the bark split fiber far exceeds the toughness of steel fiber. Yes, and that's what it said in the passage. It said that um, I remember reading this line 10. See, Darwin, which is the bark spiders, bridging silk is the world's toughest known biomaterial. It is even tougher than steel fiber, right? So that said in the passage, you look at bark spider, its toughness is tougher than high tensile steel fiber, right? But when they talking about toughness or strength, oh no, there's toughness, right? The B is right. The toughness. That's what the passage said. It was tougher. Yeah, tougher, because you have toughness and you have strength. So bark spiders, silk, and the high tension steel fiber have similar toughness, but I mean similar strengths, but different toughness. Wow, that's something. You would think strength and toughness are the same. It's amazing sometimes the detail you have to schedule. So it's B is correct. The toughness of the steel bar fiber, which is the last column, 354, toughness far exceeds the toughness of the steel fiber, although they have the same strength. I wonder what the difference between strength and toughness is. And I think they say toughness is how much energy it takes to break. So what is strength? How much it can hold? Hmm. Anyway, not necessarily for the question, so we don't get stuck. 26. Based on the table, which of the following pairs of materials are most different in terms? Well, and another thing to point out too, some smart person might say, "Why are you watching this guy's videos? He doesn't even know the difference between strength and toughness." Yeah, but that's actually the point of the video because um, I don't have to be a science expert to do well under. Oh, this is a reading. I don't have to be well. If this were the science, I would say I don't have to be a science expert to do well in science. But this is a reading, so it's actually irrelevant in that case too. Because anyway, all right. Based on the table, which of the following pairs of materials are most different in terms of elasticity? Based on the table, which of the following pairs of materials are most different in terms of elasticity? Silver Garden, Spider Flag, and high tension tensile steel. And we're talking about elasticity. Elasticity, I think, is the middle one. Silver Garden, 465, high tensile. That's very different. 465 versus zero point 0.8. That's probably that. That's a big difference. Silver Garden and Kevlar. No, because Kevlar is higher than tensile, so it's closer to Silver Garden. Domestic silkworm and nylon. Domestic silkworm, 18, nylon. Those are the same elasticity. So it's not that. Because it said which would have the most different. Kevlar 49 and carbon fiber, I doubt it. Kevlar 49, now those are pretty close relative to what? Spring Garden, Spider Flag Silk, that's pretty elastic. And steel fiber, which is inelastic. That's true. Steel is a hard metal. Probably wouldn't be elastic, so it's definitely F. All right, and according to the table, compared to the Silver Garden spider's flag silk, the domestic silkworm silk has. So you're comparing the Silver Garden spider flag silk to the domestic silkworm silk, but the focus is on the domestic. Whenever you have a comparison, you got to get the focus of the comparison, which is on the domestic silkworm silk. So we focus on that one, and it's the domestic silkworm silk. It is stronger and less. Is it less strong, less elastic than the Silver Garden? We know it's less elastic, but is it less strong? Domestic silkworm and silver garden. Domestic silkworm, silver garden. No, it's not less strong. The domestic silkworm is stronger than the silver garden because 0.6 is greater than 0.09. So that kind of makes sense if you think about it, because this is the least strong of all of them, but it's also the most elastic. Because elasticity means you got to be able to bend and move and stuff, and strength usually is compacted, right? Um, let's see, the domestic is greater toughness and greater strength. I doubt that. Well, maybe. We knew it has greater strength. Does it have greater toughness than the spring garden? No, it has a less toughness. Wow, this thing has no strength but greater toughness. So it may not be able to hold things, so I got it, but you can't break it. It's almost like a tough string, right? It may not be able to hold a lot of weight because it's a string, but you can't break it. I kind of get it, difference between strength and toughness. Okay. Uh, Messy silkworm is stronger but less tough. No, man, but the message silkworm than the silver garden. The message silkworm is stronger but less tough. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's stronger, but it's less tough than the silver garden. Yeah, great strength, but it's definitely C. Yeah, we can stop there. Okay, and our last passage, informational. This passage is from the article Native American Film Outside the Margins of Filmmaking. All right, so we kind of got what that is, right? A film that's outside the margins of filmmaking means something unique maybe about this film that's different from the average film. To manifest oneself as a filmmaker evokes such traditional professional titles as lawyer, doctor, engineer, writer, teacher, and plumber, where established institutional access is built on hierarchy and where acceptance into the profession opens opportunities for employment. I usually try to get that first sentence pretty good because it gives you an idea of what they're going to be talking about. Okay, so being a filmmaker is kind of similar to those other professionals, titles, or professional careers. In that you have to what? Establish institutional access, build a hierarchy. That means you got a top-down leadership and you got to be accepted into the profession for an opportunity. Okay. One of those doors of access to filmmaking was opened to Native Americans in an exchange that took place at the Sundance Film Festival in 1997, along with other Native filmmakers, including actor and producer Gary Farmer. Cayuga is probably his native name. I was invited that year to I was invited that year to the festival to screen our productions. While there, we were invited to a consultation with the Sundance Institute executive staff to discuss how to enhance and improve the production of Native-made films to make them competitive with any film in the program. Robert Redford, founder of the Sundance Institute of Film Festival, was not present at that meeting, but we were told he was aware of it. When asked how the Sundance Institute could help improve the participation of Native American films at the Sundance Festival, we found the conversation wavering from helping to fund filmmakers to the need for professional training and support for distribution of films. Of most interest to me during the meeting of most interest means pay attention, was the discussion of the quality of films produced by Native American filmmakers. Evidence was a demonstration of the power felt by the Sundance Festival to promote films that fit specific aesthetic preferences and expectations by festival audiences comprised of film critics, entrepreneurs, and Hollywood types, quote unquote types. To that end, Native American films had not yet achieved that appeal, but executive staff members thought it was possible. Hearing the familiar phrase, we really do want Native American participation. Uh, I instinctively sensed that little progress would be made toward improving Native filmmaking efforts if we did not become part of a system that made decisions. So it appears that this part they're saying that the production quality of a native film, right? Because they said films that fit aesthetic preferences and expectations. And you guys can probably relate to this, like you have a they call it a bootleg or knockoff film, or the production quality when you're watching a film on lower budget films is not as good as other ones. So sometimes it does kind of throw you off because you maybe can't hear the voice, or it's just not as well done. So it just it just it doesn't grab you as much as when the production quality is of the highest. So that's what they're talking about. Like Sundance Film Festival said, we can help your production quality be better. So therefore, more people might be more open to watching native films. But it seems like the author is saying that he didn't believe it would happen. He thought little progress would be made, and he's using quote toward improving, like saying stuff that people would normally say, but don't really follow through on. Maybe it was a time and the place or a release of the spirit of true collaboration that led me to say, if we are to be taken seriously and respected, we need to be at the table helping to make decisions at the Sundance Institute's headquarters where you plan programs and decide policy. I suggested that the Sundance Institute hire a Native American as a key staff member to help identify and promote Native filmmaking, someone who could work from the inside and be at the table where decisions were made. The first Native American staff member, Heather Ray, Cherokee. So before that, in parentheses, that's not necessarily his name, that's his tribe, maybe. So Gary Farmer was of the Cayuga, Heather Ray as a Cherokee was hired in that capacity by the Sundance Institute, which led to her own successful film production work. Progress on behalf of Native filmmaking by the Sundance Institute through its production labs provided initial support for the production of Smoke Signals. As noted by Joanne Hearn in her critical study of smoke signals, natives in the horizon, Hearn endorses smoke signals as a major event. The film can be seen as a landmark first in American film history, although it is important to remember the long history of Native filmmaking that came before smoke signals, and it can also be seen as a self-positioned first introduction to Native perspectives in Native filmmaking for many of its viewers. As an intervention, smoke signals challenges widely accepted misconceptions about Native Americans. Its first can be seen in different ways as inaugurating a new generation of native film production, as an important but also problematic industry marketing category, as part of critical paradigm based on sovereignty, and as a strategic creation of politicized space for indigenous identity in the public media scape. Wow, that's a lot of words, huh? So you have to probably really take your time to understand every single thing she's saying. I'm not going to do that at this point because remember, I want to keep moving and it's time constraints on this section. Hearn's extensive review and close, because if the question asks about her review specifically, I can go back to her and read it more carefully so and get every single thing she's saying. I got a gist of it, but Hearn's extensive review and close readings of the film's production and major players, including the film scriptwriter Sherman Alexie and film director Chris Ayer, revives the energy surrounding the theatrical release of Smoke Signals. Oh, I missed that. Extensive review and close reading of film production and major players. Revives the energy surrounding the theatrical release. I endorse Hearn's willingness to take up the study years after the film's release, but I have to ask, what is the second act for Native cinema? Hearn's full attention to Smoke Signals is a combination of personal stories about the scripting and directorial decision-making processes and the actors' contributions. Moreover, her critical discussion carefully articulates what cultural elements, including pop and Native culture, produce the film's crossover appeal to audiences on multiple levels. Although the film's glow has receded somewhat, the direction of Native American filmmaking has led to immeasurable success and growth internationally. And they have a star, Native American film outside the margins of filmmaking. Okay. All right. It can reasonably infer that the passage author viewed the Sundance executive's claims. Yeah, he didn't really believe it, right? Long overdue promise that would result in more support, evidence that the executives favored Native, no, an assurance that while well-meaning felt hollow. That's what he was kind of saying. And we talked about that too. He didn't really believe it. We really do want to. That's why he put in quotation marks. He says after that, I simply sensed that little progress would be made toward quote unquote improving. he's using quotation marks to show, hey, I don't really believe that. So J, an assurance that it was well-meaning felt hollow, meaning that it wasn't really going to be executed. The passage also indicates that in order to become more active participants in Sundance Film Festival, I remember reading this, he said they needed someone on the staff of the filmmaking, right? If you remember reading it, a decision-making voice within the what? Sundance Institute, right? So it was B, and then that's when he said he hired a girl, um, Heather Ray, right? It says, I suggested that as a key step in to help identify and promote Native American, someone who could work from the inside. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Number 30. Wait, is that also indicates that in order to become more active participants in the Sundance Festival, active participants, I suggest that students find a key to help identify and promote Native American someone who could work. Mhm. Is that right? Is that right? Okay, yeah, I think that was it. All right, we go for, I think, all right, 30. Which of the following statements best sum? I was in my mind, I was thinking that past indicates in that in order to become more active participants, yeah, active participants in it, yeah, they need to hire someone inside. Okay, I remember. Which of the following? I didn't feel like I read that though. I didn't say that verbatim. I suggested the Sundance Festival. Oh, here it is. If we are to be taking this in this sentence here, we need to be at the table helping make decisions. Right. Okay. Yeah. Which of the following statements best summarize the excerpt from Hearn in lines 58 to 74? Smoke Signals grapples with themes of Native identity and was created to reach younger generation. No, Native films like Smoke Signals are important because they are marked in the mainstream film industry. They're marketed. Smoke Signals is one film in a long line of Native films, but was revolutionary in its presentation of Native Americans and advancement of Native filmmaking. H. H was what she was saying. Those of you spoke signals as a landmark Native film in American film history often forget Native film's long history and impact on American cinema. No, because Native films did not have a chance to impact American cinema because the production value wasn't good and therefore they weren't really in American cinema. That's what they were talking about. That's why Sundance Film Festival went to help with the production so Native films could be in American cinema, right? So definitely H. Smoke Signal is one film in a long line of Native films, but was revolutionary in its presentation of Native Americans and in the advancement of Native filmmaking. They had the production value. So it's definitely H. I remember reading that. Um, you can see it here. It can be seen as a landmark first in American film history, although it's important to remember the long history of Native filmmaking that came before, so it was one in a long line. It can also be seen as supposition first introduced Native filmmaking for many viewers as an intervention, challenge why this supposition its first and new generation Native film production rights. So I talked about that. So it's definitely H. 30, 31. Based on the passage author would most likely agree that Hearn's review of Smoke Signals helped promote the film during its first release. No, they said the review didn't come until much later. Tried to cover too many aspects of the film, came too late to be meaningful, is both thorough and insightful. I thought the author was saying, yeah, it came a little too late to really be as meaningful. Let me make sure I read that though. Hearn's extensive review and close readings of the film's production major players included and film director revives the energy surrounding the theatrical release. I endorse Hearn's willingness to take up the study years after the film's release, but I have to ask, what is the second hyphenation? It revived the energy surrounding theatrical release. Um, I take up study. Haynes' willingness to take up the study years after the film's release. was the second act. Hearn's full attention is a combination of personal stories about the script and direction of Professor Ashton. Moreover, her critical discussion integrates the although the film's love has receded somewhat. Direction. I think, wait, may I may be wrong, because I don't think came too late to be meaningful. I don't think she said it wasn't meaningful. The passage author would most likely agree that Hearn's review is supposed to help promote the film during its initial first release. No, it was later. Tried to cover too many. She didn't say that. Came too late to be mentioned. She did kind of say that. It's both thorough and insightful. She said D more because it came late, but it wasn't too late to be meaningful because she said it was meaningful. She said it was both thorough and insightful because the way she described it, she said the review and close reading of film production and major players, including Revive's interview, it said, I endorse her willing to take up the study years after. Her full attention, that's thorough, to Smokeson is a combination of personal stories about the script. It's really thorough, articulate cultural elements. That's very thorough and that's very insightful. So definitely deep. You see how 31 could trick you though, because it did say it came too late, but this is a half right, half wrong answer, which is a whole thing is wrong. 32, according to the passage in their 1997 meeting with Native filmmakers, Sundance executives were primarily interested in making Native films. Okay, so according to the passage in their 1997 meeting with Native filmmakers, who's meeting with Native filmmakers. Sundance executives were primarily interested in making Native films competitive with other films by promoting Sundance. No. Competitive with other films promoted by, more artistically inventive than films featured at, an integral part of the Sundance initiative to reinvent its brand, adapt it to various formats to allow for you to, I think it was just make it competitive with other films produced. That was because they were saying that the film production wasn't on the level as other films, and therefore it wasn't viewed on the same level, right? So they wanted to make it competitive with other films. That's what they talked about. That was what they said when they talked about one of those doors exits to filmmakers open Native American Exchange that took place at Sundance Film Festival. I was invited that year's festival. While we were there, they were invited to consultation with Sundance Festival staff to discuss how to enhance and improve the production of Native American films to make them competitive, here it is, with any film in the program. Perfect. Word for word, competitive with other films promoted by Sundance staff. All right. 33, the passage author describes the conversation between Native filmmakers and Sundance executives as wavering. Primarily to make clear that up to that point, the meeting had been poorly managed and was behind schedule, inspired deliberation and debate among them. It became awkward because executives reluctant to include more than influence, meandered in topic and somewhat lacked focus. That's what they said, right? It was all over the place, kind of. That's how she was kind of describing it, right? It meandered in topic, meaning it kind of wandered in topic and somewhat lacked focus. Um, they're talking about the meeting, yeah. We found that the conversation wavering from helping to fund filmmakers to the need for professional training and support for it was all over, right? Helping to fund filmmakers. So, but of interest to me during that meeting, so that's when it got, I guess, more interested person. So yeah, it lacked focus. 34, as it is used in line 28, the phrase held by most nearly means within reach are perceived supported by. Held by. In evidence of what? Of most interest to me during the meeting was the discussion of the quality of films, right? Quality of films. In evidence was a demonstration of the power held by the Sundance Festival to promote films that fit specific aesthetic preferences and expectations by a festival audience. The power held it by, I mean, they had a lot of power. Sundance Festival willed it by would be F, right? The power that they wielded, that they had to be able to promote certain films. Yeah, it was that. 35. It can reasonably be inferred from the passage that the Sundance Institute's decision to hire someone like Ray was the result of a suggestion from It was the pastor's office. The pastor's office suggested it. It said it right there. I suggested that the Sunday Institute hire I as the pastor's office, right? First person. 36. In the context of passage author C. In the context of the passage, the main purpose of the last paragraph is to although the film's glow has receded somewhat, the direction of Native American filmmaking has led to measurable success and growth internationally. So it was a revisit the success most of the experience. No. Note the success within Native American filmmaking since the release. Yes, it's definitely G. Illustrate the measurable growth of international films. Similar? No. It was more about Native films. Highlight the powerful role the Sundance Festival played in producing. No. It was to note the success within Native American filmmaking since the release of Smoke Signals is definitely G because it says that that specific film, Smoke Signals Glow, has receded. The direction of Native American filmmaking has led to measured success and growth internationally. So specifically about Native American films. Hopefully that helped you. That's the end of the readings test. That was part two. Hopefully that was beneficial to you. And good luck with your testing and test preparation.